Welcome to Breakthrough Points. In this series, we don't just read old books. We discuss the spiritual gems that can instantly smash your cognitive barriers and flip your life state. I am your companion. Is there someone in your life who always stands on the opposite side? Someone whose every word seems to poke at your insecurities, making you feel offended, provoked, or even filled with an urge to silence them entirely. We are naturally inclined to flee from these harsh voices and retreat into echo chambers for comfort. But today, spiritual master F.B. Meyer, in chapter 4 of his book Paul, reveals a hard-hitting truth through a 2,000-year-old debate. The opponent who angers you the most is often the very soul guide sent by God to trigger your cognitive awakening. The protagonists of this debate are the young, unconverted Saul, Paul, and Stephen, the first martyr of the church. Part 1. The Fire in the Synagogue of Cilicia. Close your eyes and imagine the scene. Inside a synagogue in Jerusalem, the air is so thick with tension it feels ready to explode. On one side is Saul. He is the academic elite, the rising star of the Sanhedrin. He is defending 1,000 years of tradition, the temple, and the law. To him, maintaining the status quo is the ultimate form of godliness. On the other side is Stephen. He has no famous lineage, but he possesses a logic that is centuries ahead of its time. He declares, God does not dwell in temples made by human hands. Faith is not a set of stale rules, it is the freedom of the Spirit. Meyer writes that this was a confrontation between ancient authority and personal responsibility, a clash between the shackles of the letter and the freedom of the soul. To Saul, Stephen's words weren't just a difference of opinion, they were a direct assault on his entire value system. He argued furiously, attempting to use his intellect and power to crush this voice. But pay attention to this detail. The most profound parts of Paul's later theology, his teachings on law versus grace, the idea that the true temple is within the heart, and the message that there is no Jew or Greek, were almost entirely inherited from the harsh speech given by Stephen. Part 2. Why do we need harsh voices? This gives us a massive breakthrough point for our modern lives. True growth rarely comes from the praise of allies. It comes from the challenge of opponents. Allies confirm your existing biases, but opponents force you out of your comfort zone. If you are currently feeling enraged by an opposing voice, use these 5 life tests to diagnose that emotion. Test 1. Are you angry at his error, or has he touched a truth you've been afraid to face? Saul was angry because deep down, he knew Stephen's interpretation of history was unassailable. If you overreact to criticism, it's likely because someone tore off your mask. Test 2. Are you trying to eliminate the opponent to avoid self-renewal? Killing Stephen didn't solve the logical crisis inside Saul. If you only want to block those who disagree with you, you are blocking your own possibility of evolution. Test 3. Can you extract insight from the sense of offense? Stephen's words stung Paul, but they also gave Paul a new coordinate system. Can you set aside your ego and see if that person you dislike holds a missing piece of your puzzle? Test 4. Are you defending truth or just face? Saul defended the reputation of the Sanhedrin. Stephen defended the reality of life. When you argue, do you care about being right or about what is right? Test 5. Do you realize your opponent might be your mirror? Meyer suggests that Saul and Stephen were actually cut from the same cloth, equally passionate and bold. Through Stephen, God gave Saul a glimpse of his own future self. Part 3. The Seed and the Harvest. Meyer uses a beautiful metaphor. The debate in the synagogue was a seed planted in the heart of Saul. At the time, it looked like Saul won. He secured the authority to execute Stephen. Stephen fell in a heap of stones, seemingly a total failure. But in reality, that seed began to grow wildly in the depths of Paul's soul. Years later, when Paul stood at the Areopagus or wrote the book of Romans, his words were an echo of Stephen's voice from that day. This reveals a deep logic of life. The person who causes you the most pain or rejection right now might be completing the most important handover of your life. Stephen was sacrificed, but he thrust the keys to the future into Saul's hands during that harsh debate. How can we, like Paul, transform these harsh voices into a cognitive breakthrough? First, actively look for your Stephen. Don't just consume content that makes you nod in agreement. Occasionally listen to the voices that make you frown. Ask, why does this bother me so much? What blind spot is he pointing out? Second, distinguish between offensive tone and true revelation. Separate the person's attitude from their logic. If someone has a bad attitude but their advice is correct, take the advice and discard the attitude. Third, thank the opponent who makes you uncomfortable. Saul only realized at the very end that Stephen was his greatest teacher. If you are facing conflict, try saying internally, "Thank you for exposing my defense mechanisms. Thank you for forcing me to think again." Friends, Meyer says, the power of the persecutor is ultimately conquered by the patience of the victim. In Paul's life, Stephen never left. That face, like the face of an angel, and that harsh but sobering debate became the fuel for Paul's journey across the world. Stop trying to extinguish the opposing voices. Perhaps the conversation you hate the most right now is actually your tailor-made ticket to the next level of your life. If you want to understand how these mortal rivals completed their soul-level handover, I highly recommend reading F.B. Meyer's Paul, a Servant of Jesus Christ. You will find that your opponent is actually a messenger carrying the answers you need. Thank you for watching Breakthrough Points. May you have the courage to embrace the harsh truth. See you next time.